Joining me in the studio is a security expert, Will Geddes. Hello, Will. Obviously a familiar situation to you. You have been there to witness hostages being released many times in your career. So I wonder what you can tell us about the very gentle and gradual way that this is all dealt with.
Well, I mean, it's a very complex but transactional process, Vanessa. I've been involved in a number of releases, recoveries of hostages. Quite often it's been adults, but there have been a few children. When you deal with either of those, it's going to be very, very delicate. And one of the first things a negotiator will communicate to the hostage takers or kidnappers will be to take care of the hostages. You know, the better condition, the better health that they're kept in, the better those negotiations are going to go. Now, I've worked with Red Crescent. I've also worked with the International Red Cross, and they're very, very good and very well practiced at being used as the intermediaries between various parties for the exchange, obviously, of either a ransom against the individual that's been taken hostage, or to facilitate, as we've seen today, obviously, the exchange of prisoners, Palestinian prisoners, obviously, for these civilians that have been taken, obviously, back on the 7th of October.
And so as they are handed over, I suppose there's a mission on the Palestinian side in Gaza that Israelis don't find out where they were or who was harbouring them, or so they have to be kind of produced in a some kind of clandestine way under cloak of some kind of, I don't know, subterfuge, so that nobody knows where they were all this time.
Well, certainly, yes, the ceasefire that was effected this morning would have allowed for a safe passage of the hostages. And the hostages will have been split up. They would have been splintered across the city, probably maybe across the underground network of tunnels that they have. And then what they would have done is, no doubt, probably blindfolded them or hooded them so that they couldn't see where they were moving. Now, bearing in mind, if they were kept underground, they would have been light deprived for the last 43 odd days.
I know.
So, you know, their condition would possibly have been coordinated with, obviously, the negotiators, that they would be released after dark. So, again, not released into the bright, shining light of the day. Now, when they're moved to a soak area. Someone from the ICRC or Red Crescent would then be involved in, obviously, collecting them from that rendezvous point and then taking them safely, with safe passage, obviously, to where they would subsequently be handed over. And as we know in this instance, it's obviously those Israelis have been handed over across Egyptian borders. And then the Israelis would no doubt have a very, very capable, obviously, medical and psychology sort of capability there to obviously process those hostages when they first arrive.
I mean, when we talk about the trauma that these hostages must have suffered, I mean, being snatched, you know, we don't know what they saw. We don't know if they saw family members being shot. We don't know if they saw the blood that spattered so many of the houses and that was all that was left to kind of remember them by. We don't know what they saw on the day, but we know they were snatched and seized and taken away. That we know. We don't yet know whether they were all kept underground in these tunnels constructed by Hamas. They may well have been. We don't know whether they were fed properly. We don't know whether they were brutalised. We don't know whether they were programmed. We don't know what people said to them. We don't know if they said anything to them. We just don't know. We don't know if they were in groups or separately. We know some of them are very tiny little children. We don't know how they were cared for. We have absolutely no idea, but I'm sure you can imagine more clearly than most of us can the kind of level of trauma, and then what an unbelievable shock to the system it must be to be returned to your country in this completely different state from the person you were when you were taken away.
Yeah, I mean, there are some very, very good psychologists who are known in our business, obviously, to be able to provide that rehabilitation, that psychological counselling and help for hostages when they are released. And again, all of us will react, behave and be impacted in very, very different ways. In the same way as you and I could have a similar cut on our wrist, one of us will heal faster than the other. And the same goes psychologically. But that sort of counselling is absolutely essential. What is concerning, obviously, as you rightly say, is about the conditions they were kept in. But also there will be, no doubt, a list that the negotiators will have established at this stage as to how many out of that 240 hostages will be able to be released, how many may have possibly died. And I would say that it's probably highly likely that Hamas will be holding back those individuals that have perhaps been more brutalized, injured, or damaged through that process of the hostage taking. There will also be those that are dead. And again, I've been involved in the negotiation of the recovery of dead hostages for the families. And it doesn't really change the boundaries or the parameters of negotiation. It just takes it to another level to a certain extent.
Oh my gosh, so much of this is really quite literally unthinkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really, really is. You think of man's inhumanity to man. And you think that these people on October the 7th were just in their homes watching telly, you know, thinking of going to a football game, having a cup of coffee at a pop festival, just living normal lives like everybody else. And then this happened. It really is
Horrific.
absolutely horrific. Will Geddes, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for coming in.